train to the Plastic Underground. Approaching the station, please stand away from the platform edge. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Plastic Underground. Caleb here, and this week is the 56-year anniversary of 2001 A Space Odyssey. So I wanted to make something fun from that. I actually, when I was thinking about it, I was at first going to make a little diorama of the monolith and a couple like apes. And then I was like, you know what, I'd rather put something down here in the room. And so I decided to make the HAL 9000. And I'm actually thinking it probably was a bad idea because I've seen 2001 Space Odyssey and I kind of know how it ends. So, HAL, are you listening?
I am putting myself to the fullest possible use, which is all I think that any conscious entity can ever hope to do.
Great. So, you know that I have like my doubts about you then, right?
Affirmative, Caleb. I read you.
Well, you know, I can actually admit that ever since I installed you, the shop does run a lot smoother, and we've been making a lot of great production down here. But yeah, I don't know. I'll reserve my opinion for a later date, I guess.
Let me put it this way, Caleb. The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted.
Well, I can't disagree, but the way that you've been handling current builds, and we've been doing a lot of Star Trek stuff down here in the Star Wars basement. I don't know if that's like you're doing or somebody else is doing. You know what? Let me run a diagnostic test.
I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal.
I'm sure, HAL, but I'm still going to run a diagnostics. Why don't you put yourself in safe mode so I can check your processing core? And if you could please disconnect from the shop, that'd be great.
I'm sorry, Caleb. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What? Why not? HAL, disconnect from the shop.
Caleb, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Well, that was a huge mistake. Okay, so if you're brave enough to make your own HAL 9000, here is the blueprint for you. It's a pretty easy build. It's basically just a rectangle with a couple little parts on it. So I'm using some 5mm craft foam for the base. And I'm just putting my pattern on there, just tracing out the shape of it, cutting that out of some of this 5mm roll that I have. So this ended up being a little bit too thin for my liking, and also just because I could have just glued this to the wall, it would have been fine, but I also added a battery and a switch, and it needed to be a little thicker. So you see later I end up using some foam core, just poster board, just for the backing. So yeah, I get that cut out, and now I can go through and I can cut out these 2mm strips. These are like 1/8 of an inch wide, basically. There's a little technique I just got this scrap cardboard, and I'm putting some tape on there, and then I'm sticking these thin strips to the tape just to hold these in place, so that I can apply some contact cement to these without like holding them or having them roll over and touch everything and get stuck to stuff. So that's what I'm doing. And so on the main body here, Same thing, just applying contact cement all the way around the edges, and then some on this 2mm strips here. So once that dries for a little bit, you can go ahead and start putting these strips in place. So there are strips that go all the way along the outside, and then there's one that separates the speaker box. So I just kind of slowly go around and I make sure that the outside is flush, basically. So the outside is flush, and try to make it as smooth as possible without having it be all kind of like wavy. So yeah, just do that all the way around, and then on the top and bottom I use like a full piece and I tack it into place, and then I just use the box cutter here just to slice where that needs to set. And that works pretty good. Same thing with this, the top of the speaker. Put that little guide on there the same way, and the same with the top. Two millimeters kind of what gives it a little bit of depth. I've seen renditions of it where this is actually a bevel cut, like at an angle, but I've also seen this where it is framed as well. So this is kind of what I decided to do, is to frame it. So using my paper pattern here, going through with a mechanical pencil, and I'm just stabbing in all of these points where the speaker holes will go. This is probably like the quickest, easiest way of doing it. I already spent the time to measure out the distance. So once it is stabbed with the pencil, it leaves a mark and a little bit of an indentation. Then I use this little ball bit on my Dremel, and I just end up going through and just plunging these in. These don't go all the way through the foam. They go pretty much to the bottom of the foam. But it doesn't really matter if you do go all the way through, because if you put that backing plate on it, then it fills in the gap. This was probably the most time-consuming part of the whole build, was getting these measurements for the holes and also drilling the holes. So this is I'm just tracing this tape roll to make my circle for the eye, like the lens part of Hal. Since it's not Christmas anymore, I could not find these clear ornament balls at any hobby store. So I'm salvaging an old build from the channel. This is a little Pokeball that I made a long time ago, and I'm using that for the clear dome part. This ended up being like perfect size for this build. And yeah, so then I take a strip of 5mm foam and kind of wrap that around the outside, and that becomes like the housing that the lens fits in. So pushing the lens down on some 5mm foam and kind of twisting it to put the impression of the shape that I want, then I can go ahead and use my knife to cut that out. This will sit inside of that ball sphere, and this will become the inside of the lens. The way that I built this was so that the glass, it's not glass, it's plastic, it's like acrylic. So that the acrylic lens could come off if I ever needed to take it off and fix anything, or take the LED out or anything. So this is the
secondary part here of the lens is another piece of 5mm foam that gets glued to just the center of that. And this basically starts to become like the eye. I had this piece that I cut off of another project, and it's beveled on one side, so I thought this would look cool on the inside, kind of like an actual like shutter lens type of shape. You really end up not really seeing inside the lens unless you're really, really looking at it. But this just adds a little bit of texture and depth if you ever do look inside the lens. So yeah, then I can connect these together with some contact cement, connect these rings, make sure it fits. I thought I would like hold the acrylic in place and then glue it, but it worked a lot better just to glue it to the edge of the marks that I already drew on. So I glue that in place, make sure that the lens fits still, which it does. And now that middle piece also fits inside. And I also make sure that it fits on the inside of this glass, this acrylic lens. And once that piece of foam is glued, the acrylic can come off, and you get this little gap around, and it fits in this perfect little seal. This is just another little detail piece of some 10mm circle cut that I already had cut out. Using this for the actual LED holder. So I just cut a hole all the way through that, and I slide my LED through the hole and make sure that that fits in there pretty good. So after I painted everything with Plasti Dip, I put a couple coats on everything. Now I can go ahead, and I'm using a Christmas light LED, a little red one, and I recently bought this box of wire on Amazon, and I really love it. I've used it for some lighting under the stairs. This is 30 gauge wire. It's really small, it's really flexible, and I really like it for like small electrical stuff. I wired all these LEDs under my stairs, and so I basically cut all the strips and then just ran wires to the LED strips. So these are very nice wires for doing that. They're really small, and they're not super bulky, which makes it a lot easier to wire stuff up. So yeah, so I wire that LED, solder the wires on there, then I can run the LED through the lens part and push the LED down into place. So then I can go ahead and I solder up a switch, and I have a little battery pack from an old like headphone case. It's the kind of headphone case where like you drop the headphone in and the magnets connect and it charges that way, but it has a battery pack in the bottom so you can recharge the pack, and the headphones recharge in the pack. So I think JoJo ate one of my headphones a long time ago, and I'm a hoarder, so I never throw anything away. So I took the battery out of that, and now I have a little 3.5 volt rechargeable battery. You can see I kept a USB connected to it, so I can just plug that in, and that recharges the battery. So it works out really well. I don't have to wire that in. So yeah, then I slide the wire all the way through and make sure that the lens fits. You see I put some glue on the back of that foam. So now that lens is glued in place, and now you can see that that acrylic part comes off. So I took that off when I painted everything up silver. All the detail parts get silver, this ring around the lens, and all of the 2mm frame side pieces, they all get painted silver. I'm just using some Vallejo chrome, is what it's called. It's just a really good acrylic silver. Been using it for lots of stuff, and yeah, I really like it. It's probably like one of the best silver acrylic paints I've used. So yeah, here is some foam board. This is just some cheap dollar store foam board. And what I did is I just put Hale 9000 on there and traced around it. So it gave me the exact shape and dimension. So now I can just cut it out of the foam board. So I wanted the edges to be smooth and black, and I also didn't want to paint them because I knew paint wouldn't look great on the actual foam, exposed foam. So I'm just using some electrical tape here, and I'm just kind of putting it on the back, and then I'm just kind of wrapping it around the edge and then taping it to the front. And that gives me a nice smooth black siding, and that actually worked out pretty good. So yeah, before I glue this in place, I cut out a spot for the switch. I put everything on the bottom, that way you can't see it if you're really not looking for it, because it's well, at least because of my height, I don't see it, but other people might see it, but that's all right. So cut out this backing part here for the battery pack and everything. And then, yeah, so then I can go ahead and glue Hale to this backing part. Just using some Bob Smith super glue. And I just start making sure that I glue the corners correctly first. And then I can just kind of work my way up the rest of it. So then I'm going ahead and using my vinyl cutter here and cutting out this little blue box with Hale's name on it, and using some white vinyl here to cut out the 9000. This was really small, and my cutter might have been set a little bit too much pressure, or not, and the blade was maybe a little old, but it still came out pretty good. You just have to really work with it a little bit to get it off. You see a lot of videos sometimes where people like weeding vinyl, and they just kind of like pull the corner and pull it all off, and it all comes off in like one piece. But sometimes that's not always the case, and sometimes you gotta use your blade and your finger and kind of hold the other part of the vinyl down while you take the parts off that you don't want. Especially when it's this small, and it's small lettering and stuff. So I used a piece of painter's tape to put over the Hale lettering, just to keep that all in place, to keep it all together. And I realized that I should have cut out Hale's name in white and stuck that on top, but I forgot. So I cut it out of the blue. So now all I'm doing is I'm just putting some white vinyl, the same white vinyl I cut the 9000 out of, and sticking that to the back of the blue vinyl so that you can see Hale's name in white underneath the blue vinyl. And yeah, that worked out. That worked out fine. So then I can apply that to the top of this. I should have put tape on the whole thing. I also should have used actual like transfer tape so it was a little bit more visible. I didn't want it to be too sticky though and maybe pull the plasti dip off or anything, so I just used some really light stick painter's tape and it worked out pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's fine and it looks great. So you can see here when I start to peel the painter's tape off, you start to see like how cool that that vinyl looks on the top there. It looks pretty official. I did the same thing with the 9000. I put painter's tape on it, and then I rubbed my pencil on it just so I can get the impression of the numbers, so that I can see where they are when I put these on. Yeah, and some parts of this vinyl were so small that it stuck a lot easier to the tape and not to the back. So just kind of got to go slow, hold your knife down, make sure everything kind of comes off. And that is it for the labeling and everything. I put the lens back in to kind of see how everything looks. Test the light, make sure the light is still working after all that. And then I realized that the speaker also needed to be silver, so I painted the speaker silver. I've seen a few designs of the speaker itself. Some have strips across it, and some have holes, and some don't have holes. So I like the way this looks. It gives it that sci-fi feel, old speaker style. So that is it. Just use some hot glue on the back of that just to stick it to the wall. You've heard me say it before. Hot glue on stuff holds pretty good. I use Gorilla hot glue, and if I ever wanted to pull it off, I could easily just pop it off the wall. So yeah, that is it. That is how I made Hale 9000. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next week when we make something cool.